So friends, given some recent legal developments, I think it's fair to say that we are one day closer to Donald Trump being indicted for his Georgia state election crimes. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, today we are one step closer. I don't know that I can call it one giant step, one modest step. It's a significant step. We are one step closer to seeing Donald Trump indicted for his Georgia state election crimes. Now, as we all know, the district attorney down in Fulton County, Georgia, Fani Willis, has been investigating the Georgia state election crimes of Donald Trump and his criminal associates, his co-conspirators. She has been investigating them thoroughly, aggressively, exhaustively. She had a special grand jury impaneled, a grand jury with the power of the subpoena. In Georgia, you need a special grand jury for that. And she presented 75 reluctant witnesses to the grand jury. And the grand jury has concluded its work, the special grand jury, and it issued a report that indicates who should be indicted and for what crimes. Recently, some media organizations brought suit urging the Judge McBurney, who has supervisory authority over the grand jury down in Georgia, they urged Judge McBurney to make that grand jury report public. And today, we got Judge McBurney's ruling on the request to make the grand jury report public. Let's start with the new reporting regarding Judge McBurney's decision. This from NBC News. Headline, Georgia judge rules some of grand jury report in Trump probe be made public. And that article begins, a Georgia judge on Monday ruled that portions of a Fulton County grand jury's report into possible interference in the 2020 election by former President Donald Trump and his allies be made public later this week. In an 8-page ruling, Judge Robert McBurney ruled the report's introduction, conclusion, and Section 8, in which jurors express concern that some witnesses may have lied under oath, can be made public. Those witnesses, for ease of reference, let's call them the liars. Those witnesses are not identified in the report, the judge said. Okay, friends, now let's turn to a few select portions of Judge McBurney's 8-page ruling to see what we can glean, what we can tease out, or as lawyers like to say, what reasonable inferences can we draw from Judge McBurney's ruling? Because, you know, lawyers always have to make things sound more complicated than they are. Let's turn to Judge McBurney's ruling. Judge McBurney's ruling reads, in part, that the grand jury conducted a criminal investigation into the facts and circumstances relating directly or indirectly to possible attempts to disrupt the lawful administration of the 2020 elections in the state of Georgia, and to draft and submit a report recommending whether anyone should be prosecuted for such potential crimes. Judge McBurney's ruling continues. The undersigned, that is the judge, concludes that much of the final report should not be disclosed until such time as the district attorney completes her investigation, although 2 parts may now be published, consistent with protecting the due process rights of all involved. We're going to put a pin in that phrase, the due process rights of all involved, and we're going to talk about what that means in a few minutes. The judge's ruling continues. Having reviewed the final report, the undersigned, the judge, concludes that the special purpose grand jury did not exceed the scope of its prescribed mission. Indeed, it provided the district attorney with exactly what she requested, a roster of who should, and then in parentheses, or should not, close parentheses, be indicted, And for what? In relation to the conduct and aftermath of the 2020 general election in Georgia. I, friends, find it interesting that Judge McBurney sort of emphasized that the grand jury listed a roster of who should, and then almost in offhanded fashion in parens, well, or should not, be indicted. Judge McBurney continues. Fundamental fairness requires this, meaning that the report remain sealed, because it's a report that may recommend that criminal charges be sought against specific individuals. And then he follows up with something that I think clarifies what he's talking about there. He says this is particularly true, it should remain sealed, if the grand jury's final report includes recommendations involving individuals who never appeared before the grand jury and so had no opportunity to be heard. Let's see. Who was the grand jury looking at for a possible indictment that never appeared before the grand jury? Well, for one, Donald Trump. Judge McBurney continues. 3 parts of the final report are ripe for publication. Those 3 portions include the introduction and conclusion to the final report, as well as Section 8, in which the special purpose grand jury discusses its concerns that some witnesses may have lied under oath during their testimony to the grand jury. Because the grand jury does not identify those witnesses, the liars, that conclusion may be publicly disclosed at this time. Okay, friends, let's follow the justice breadcrumbs in Judge McBurney's ruling. First of all, let's state the obvious. If the grand jury report said no crimes were committed, nobody should be indicted, nothing to see here, well, I'm quite sure Judge McBurney would have ordered the immediate release of the report, but he didn't. That's an important data point. And what did Judge McBurney say about why he was not yet prepared to release the report? He said, 1, DA Willis had to complete her investigation, and 2, he had to be concerned with the due process rights of individuals in the future. Now, friends, whose due process rights are we concerned about in the context of a criminal case? A defendant's due process rights. So that buzz phrase, due process rights, is almost synonymous with indictments are coming, there will be defendants, and we need to protect their due process rights. Now, another sign that indictments are coming is what Judge McBurney put in that one passage in parentheses. Let's circle back to that. He said, indeed, the grand jury provided the district attorney with exactly what she requested, a roster, that is a list of who should or should not be indicted. Who should be indicted or not. He sort of as an afterthought put that in the parentheses as a possibility, but I think the message was pretty clear. So friends, I think some of what we can glean or tease out or reasonably infer from Judge McBurney's 8-page ruling is that indictments are coming. Virtually every part of that ruling militates in favor of the conclusion that indictments are coming. People will be charged with violating Georgia state election crimes. And then there's that passage about the liars, right? Judge McBurney said, and I will release Section 8, because the grand jury apparently believes there were some witnesses who were subpoenaed to the grand jury, who were placed under oath, and who then lied, presumably about Donald Trump's election crimes, perhaps the election crimes of others. And that is really pretty important, pretty consequential. Why do I say that? Well, we know some of the people who went into the grand jury who really didn't want to testify about Trump's crimes. Guys like Rudy Giuliani and Mike Flynn and Lindsey Graham, who ran to court trying to convince judge after judge, Lindsey all the way up to the Supreme Court, trying to convince judges, please don't make me testify. And they lost every time. Every judge ordered them to go in and testify. Are we shocked that the grand jury has concluded that some of the folks who testified lied? Not shocking, right? Now, we don't know whether it was Rudy, Mike Flynn, Lindsay. I don't know where the smart money is riding on that. But here's the thing. When somebody lies in the grand jury, anytime I put a witness in the grand jury and I suspect that he or she might lie because they were loyal to the target of the investigation, or they were fearful, or for some other reason, maybe they were complicit, they were afraid they were going to get in trouble, I told them up front, I promise you, Mr. or Miss Witness, if you lie to the grand jury, your problems have just begun, because I will ask the grand jury to indict you for perjury. If you lie about a material matter and I believe I can prove you were lying, I will ask the grand jury to indict you for obstructing justice, the grand jury investigation. If the evidence supports that charge, I will ask the grand jury to indict you as an accessory after the fact, because your lies are designed to help the target of the investigation get away with his crimes. I may even look at you hard as a co-conspirator if you agreed to tell those lies with others to try to obstruct the investigation and to try to help the target, like Donald Trump, get away with his crimes. So I can promise you, before we walk into that grand jury, that if you lie, that is what's in store for you. So now the grand jury, it seems, we'll see more in Section 8 when the judge releases it. I think on February 16th, the judge is going to release the introduction, the conclusion, and Section 8 about the liars in the grand jury. And we'll see what we learn. Now, Judge McBurney was careful to say it doesn't name the liars. It just talks about how the grand jury believes witnesses lied to them. But whoever they are, here's the beauty of it, friends. DA Fani Willis now has additional leverage to go after the liars, to charge the liars, to flip the liars, to convert the liars into cooperating witnesses. She now has leverage over them that she would not have had if they hadn't lied in the grand jury. And that can turn into a real bonus to the quality and quantity of the incriminating evidence that will be available to District Attorney Fani Willis. And that's a good thing, because at the end of the day, Donald Trump and his criminal associates have to be held accountable for the crimes they committed in Georgia, trying to steal the election, the presidential election. Yeah, it's a good thing, because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again soon.